The women that are being successful in innovating and getting funding are women that are finding a particular niche and they're figuring out a business model. And the minute that they grow and they get traction, no one cares that they're a woman.
This is Inspiring Women. I'm Lori McGraw, and I am speaking with the Missy Krasner. And here we are, Missy, we're at Health, and this is a really, really fun time to be here. I've been here probably 8 hours. I am exhausted by the amount of buzz that's going on around the show floor. And how are you doing?
It's great to be here. We were here last year together doing a lot of really interesting things. And here we are a year later. Lots has transpired in 1 year.
A lot has transpired in 1 year. I want to talk about that, Missy. I want to talk about sort of like the state of healthcare, what's happening there. Your background, which spans many different, very important companies. You've been working in the startup space, but I would just say at scale from the get-go. You have never worked on anything small. You've worked on only things that are big. And one of the big things that you've most recently been working on is Penguin AI. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, it's so exciting. I mean, I've known you for so long in your career, and I think, I kind of did three things with my career. The first was 3 tries at big tech and healthcare. Earliest days at Google, I was V1 of Google Health. There's been 8 or 9 more Google Health teams. This was back in Eric
Are you
Schmidt.
done yet? Are you done yet? You're not. Are we close?
I could literally sell my swag on eBay. It's like so valuable, right? The original Google Health logo. I walk by the booth and I'm like, I designed that. But I tried it at Google and then went off to Box, and that was, a lot more sort of utility and tooling. Did great work there, and then Amazon bought PillPack. They wanted to do Amazon Care. I jumped in there. A little in between, did a little bit of venture at Canvas Ventures, funded Doximity, Practice Fusion, and then government.
Before you even went to government, though, Missy, I mean, just like for listeners, okay, so I built a company, Allscripts, which is one of the early electronic health record companies. We had great scale. Missy was everywhere in healthcare. She was Ms. Innovation before that was like the cool hip thing. You helped us, you pushed us at that time, and we were never like working on anything directly together, but you were everywhere. You knew all the innovators and you were always on the forefront of innovation. Compare and contrast, those times where you were kind of an evangelist about like, we need to think bigger. We need to like take big platforms and expand them into the space of healthcare in a meaningful way. What's happened between, it's more than 20 years ago
20
now.
years, yeah.
So where are we now, just in sort of what you're excited about?
Well, look, I think anyone that's been in healthcare as long as we've been in, it's piecemeal. It's a piecemeal innovation approach. A lot of the reason why is because it is heavily regulated. But there's been 2 watershed moments in the 20 years that I've been doing this. And I would say that the first watershed moment was really the stuff around the High-Tech Act and everything around, and you guys were at the forefront of this at Allscripts, everything around meaningful use and really going from 33% of adoption from the manila chart into electronic health records up to like closer to 89, 93% in that 4 to 5 year period, pre-High-Tech Act and then post, with meaningful use coming out. So that was a watershed moment. Like, hello, doctors went from paper to electronic health records. Big deal. The second watershed moment was COVID.
Yep.
We shut down, couldn't get care, and all of a sudden, telehealth was open and ready to go, and all of the regs were relaxed, and we saw a massive burst of innovation around virtual first, omnichannel.
You were or were not in government during the COVID years?
I was not in government. I was long gone. I was at Amazon, and then I jumped into Redesign Health and did a bunch of small companies.
Right.
And I got to tell you, it was cowboy moments. Like valuations were high. If you had a team that had an exit history or had some great operator chops but still didn't have the technology built, people were writing term sheets. It was fantastic. Then COVID came, kind of swept through, and we all returned back. And now the next watershed moment is AI.
Yep.
And it's, about a year and a half to 2 years ago, OpenAI, ChatGPT's on the scene. Lots of people are sort of buzzing. And the first year was like a really nascent buyer market. Providers and payers didn't really understand what they should be doing, but they were getting pressure downward from their boards to be like, hey, do you know anything about this? Should we hire a chief AI officer? Should you do some pilots? And, the low-hanging fruit was all the administrative backflow. So I said, hey, I would really like to experiment at this point in my career. I have been in big tech. I've done a startup really young in my health. I've done federal government. I would really like to experiment with co-founding a startup. So I was able to find Fawad Butt, who was the former chief data officer at Kaiser Permanente. He had the same role at Optum, same role at United. He did over a decade and a half of running these big, huge P&Ls, massive 5,000 people reporting to him, touching more than 70% of all the data in the U.S. between those three organizations. That's 55 million lives.
Big organization, lots of scale, process.
Yes.
Hard to move fast,
hard to move the needle.
To be nimble.
Yes, but with lots of data. And so basically he was like, oh my gosh, I now have tooling that I never had before. I was doing traditional AI, I have all these black ops teams that were like in there, really working the algorithm. And now I can do very different things. And so voila, Penguin AI came on, and it's a full agentic AI platform, has its own proprietary small language models that are task-based for certain digital workers or agents, like things that are all back office, whether it be HCC risk coding, it could be medical coding, it could be denials and appeals management, it could be prior auth, all the whole chassis, and we sell to both providers and payers. And so for 2 years, got that company off its feet. We just closed a 30 million Series A. It's been so fun, and now I'm off to 5 or 6 other companies.
Oh, well, 5 or 6 or more. So Missy, in that sort of like that back office, that gunk and all that data, how much waste can come out of the system? Put that in context for us, for all of those processes that exist today. A lot of the AI has unfortunately gone into revenue optimization. Like, coding for all the reasons that aren't particularly helpful. And so what can we take out of the system with a Penguin AI?
Yeah, I mean, it really, you can read MIT's published a report on this, McKinsey. It's really like estimated that it's a $1 trillion sort of dollar administrative burden across provider and payer. It's huge, and it's labor. It's a lot of labor costs, and it's a lot of time. So yanking out sort of the multiple touch points of review processes and the people you need to employ and the time that gets wasted and the care that's not provided. Down to a granular level, a lot of the pilots that Penguin's doing, they're measuring, like, how back in the day when you were measuring length of stay and like, hey, this patient's like...
I do remember back in the day, Missy, length of stay. Thank you. And I know how to measure and calculate that.
Might still be in the day. But back in the day when it was traditional algorithms.
Remember when? We used calculators.
So it's a little bit like how like time to decision, right? Essentially like how fast can a decision be rendered? Call center is a really big space where we're seeing a huge lift in improvement. It's all around your stars, your improvements around sort of, patient surveys. So it's a lot of stuff that it impacts your bottom line, particularly on the payer side for MLR. So that's kind of where we're trying to extract some of the waste.
I think it's just like, it took us so long to get to sort of like, a watershed moment number 1 in terms of electronic health record adoption, watershed moment number 2 in terms of COVID, that was a crisis time. So you had to do, it was very, very messy, but a lot of things worked. And now what I think, we have the opportunity for with the AI, adoption at the speed and scale is to bring the humanness back to healthcare. And that's the opportunity for all of us, better outcomes, better care, but the humanness back to healthcare. All of that waste is, they're jobs and things that people do, but they're not the high touch, high value humanness that is so important.
It's not high leverage. It's monotonous, repetitive tasks that certainly are not like the high touch kind of empathy needs that you need around care.
We've got mental health needs. We've got all kinds of still gaps in care. We've got all kinds of opportunities to help the aging. We've got so many opportunities to help women and research and children. So the opportunity to go after things where there hasn't been capacity or resources is enormous. So Missy, I want to sort of pivot the conversation because whatever those 5 or 6 next things, beyond Penguin AI. I'm sure they're all going to be next level exciting, pushing envelopes. You know so much about how to advance really big ideas in healthcare. If we can just reflect back together, we were here a year ago at Health. We were both extremely excited to be working on the issues of women, but in the area of politics.
Yeah.
We were supporting a candidate who did not win the White House, and we have a different administration that's here today. So we started this group together, the Women Healthcare Leaders for Progress. I'm really proud of that work, disappointed in the outcome of the time, but not in any way confused of my resolve in terms of the issues that we were talking about. How do you think back to that, a year ago today?
I've been walking the floors, and I even sort of went to bed last night and really sort of was thinking back. There was a lot of buzz last year around the election. It's October. It's right before the election turn. We had a lot of really interesting celebrities. We had Maria Shriver here. We had Halle Berry here. We had Chelsea Clinton. And it was an interesting time. It was this apex in a political moment. And we started this organization really to just find all of the healthcare women leaders out there that were in delivery, that were on the payer side, that were in med tech, that were in startups, right? Like digital health startups. And we had drones of women come out. We had close to 1,000 signatures, and we had people that were participating in a lot of regional events. And I think, here we are sort of fast forward a year later, and there's been a drastic change. What we're seeing is a lot of health systems, and you're in this as well, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of employers, we're trying to figure out if the safety net is going to be gutted.
Mm-hmm.
Where does the risk get shifted to? And in my humble opinion, I think if we can't get past this government shutdown kind of impasse around, do we keep the ACA tax subsidies? Do we do Medicaid waivers in certain states, and is the federal government going to play there? If we can't get past that, ultimately, the employee that's got a commercial plan and or the consumer that's on some kind of ACA plan, they're going to get hit.
Well, they are getting hit.
They're already getting hit.
If you talk to any consumer of healthcare, and certainly I know a lot about this now from the employer side.
Yes, you do.
But we're talking about double-digit year-over-year increases from what it was, year over year, and we're now 12, 18, 26%.
26%.
Crazy amounts. And for an employer, the difference is sort of like passing it on to their employees who can barely afford healthcare as it is, or doing something dramatically different. I know that's what we're working on, but I don't want to go into transparent commercial. Rather, I'm just interested in, as you think about or see this the work of the administration. I have been stunned actually with the prolific chaos that is going on. Now listen, I'm going to call it chaos because it's hard and confusing to understand sort of like which direction the administration is going. But what's not confusing is it's only the start. There's more coming. For some companies, that will mean a lot of opportunity. For other companies, it will mean, problems. But a lot of change is coming, and we were concerned about that
very
last
concerned.
year.
I mean, look, you've got the whole life sciences and research community up in arms now. That whole economic model for fundraising and being able to actually get grant funding is completely upside down. And, while we don't sell into that directly, that ancillarily affects us. And I think all of the whole buyer community is going to just be really upside down, whether it's employer broker or it's health systems or even payers. Like Medicare Advantage is sort of struggling to find its way right now. It's really going to be a difficult time. And I think, what does that mean? What does that mean for our industry?
Like with your innovator mindset on, like where are the opportunities? I mean, like we are pragmatic people.
Yeah.
Like when you have that kind of, again, chaos from some point of view, what can you lean into with the innovator mindset?
So being at Google, being at Amazon, big D2C brands that have massive market power, it's like, why did we fail? Why did we fail? Well, lots of reasons. I could write a whole Harvard business case on why we failed 2 times over. This is the moment in time where we will be squeezed so much in the traditional B2B healthcare system that consumers will actually say, let me just pay. Let me just pay out of pocket. I need a concierge doctor. I will pay for that I will pay for that lab test myself. I'll pay to advance forward in line. I'll do my own PT. It's going to totally change the dynamic. And I think longevity is a really interesting new trend because you've got people who are like, I'm concerned about my health, and all of this AI out there, there's a ton more data. If you can take all of the traditional allopathic westernized medicine data you have on me in the system, and I can combine it with all of this sort of all mix. Now is the time. This is what I was talking about 20 years ago at Google. Like, imagine a chat GPT for your health that's got a longevity database in it. Like, that's a whole new world. It's like, Missy, here's all of your problems. These are all your medical diagnoses. This is what you do all day long. This is kind of what your environment is. I can now tell you how much longer you're going to live if you do A, B, and C.
Okay, that's a little scary. I don't need to know that. I don't need
it
to
is
know
a little
that,
scary.
Missy.
Yeah, I mean, it is. But I mean, this is sort of like this is where we're going. So I do think that out of sort of stress and fracture and lack of funding, people are going to have to dig down and figure out how to get their own services, and it's gonna open up the model. It's going to open up the model.
So that's a lot of like opportunity and innovation there. So Missy, let's go back to sort of my favorite topic, which is women in leadership, okay? Because one of the things that I've been trying to do with inspiring women all these years is really lift incredible voices so that others can advance into leadership. Part of what I've also seen over the last year is there actually are more, unfortunately, but true, more headwinds for women coming into leadership. We have similar barriers to funding for women-led companies. The women's health opportunities that we saw just 2 years ago are actually, we were trending in negative directions. And again, this is why Inspiring Women exists, to lift voices, to advance more women. But with these headwinds, how are you thinking about it, Missy? You've always been personally your own brand of leadership, which has been amazing. You have so many people who look to you for ideas and like, I want to be more like that, bold and advancing. What do you see for women today? And what do you see for other leaders that are out there who can no longer talk about DEI in the same way that they used to? That's real, but true. So how are you thinking about it to just continue to advance the cause?
Yeah, it is a really interesting time. I mean, you are seeing in this sort of, sort of political stratosphere, a lot of talk that harkens us back to a very different time, very sort of nationalistic, religious overtones from the 1950s. And it is a very scary wave. However, what I would say is the women that are being successful in innovating and getting funding are women that are, it doesn't matter that they're women. They could be someone of color. They could be a man even. It's that they're finding a particular niche and they're figuring out a business model. And the minute that they grow and they get traction, no one cares that they're a woman. So Joanna Strober is a great example from Minnie. I mean, great example, right? Like blew up, right? Found a niche. It's like, hey, there's all these women who are over 40 that need help with menopause. Electra. Doing the same thing, right? And I can find a bunch of nurse practitioners that I can essentially roll into a network that are all insurance providers, and I'll blow up. And no one is, people are inviting her to the White House. Like people want to talk to her. And it's because she is a successful businesswoman who figured out a niche. And so I would say any young CEO who is a female founder, it's like, hey, look, you might have headwinds if you're doing something in abortion care. You might have headwinds if you're doing something in fertility right now, because that's still very politicized. But everything else around care delivery, specifically for women, and we have tons of great brands out there. Diana, we've got Herself, we've got tons of great, Kindbody is still trying to sort of figure out their way. Progeny, there's a lot of really good femtech startups out there that are still making their way. And at the end of the day, it's about ARR and revenue. If you have it and you have product market fit, people will pay attention to you.
It's always the business results. So one of the things that I've been spending personally just a lot of time reflecting on as I talk to so many different women leaders is, I look at this time now where it's like, again, we'll go back to DEI, where that is just no longer a celebrated part of a company.
It's demonized. It's not even not celebrated.
Exactly.
It's like you get in trouble. Right.
You get in trouble,
Yeah.
and so people are trying to figure out how to grapple with that. But I look at that, and what I say when I go out and speaking about women in leadership, it's like nobody's here to save us. Nobody's here to save us. And I have appreciated every powerful person who has been an ally to the cause of trying to advance more women into leadership. And it is no one else's responsibility but the women themselves. And so I am really been sort of doubling down on encouraging young entrepreneurs, young women leaders, faster, more, louder, bolder.
Yes.
Because you actually kind of have to do it and find your people, find your tribe, but you really need to be moving faster and louder. And then for women who are like myself, who have been in the space for a really long amount of time, we need to do more, pull more people forward, because the networks and those other types of opportunities, they're just not there in the same way.
They are not there. It is a, I mean, some people would call it tech bro moment.
There is a bro moment.
There is a bro moment going on, particularly in government right now. And, it's a difficult time, but the buzz is still here. We're still seeing there's a lot of, I ran into 6 or 7 women here who are on stage that are CEOs. I think about Michelle Davies at Wheel. I can name 10 phenomenal female CEOs who've been up, down, left, right.
That you personally have mentored and coached and helped along the way. So Missy, let's close out on inspiring women with just again, you're at a point in time where you're still innovating. And the best is probably still not here yet for you because of all that you've accomplished, but what you continue to push on. If you reflect back on sort of, what you've done over the past, whether it's decade or whatever, I'm curious as to what fuels you, because it is so important to me, that level of energy that you bring and this commitment for more and larger impact. That's what I think so many women leaders need. They need that level of energy because it is hard out there. That's hard for any entrepreneur. Let's not kid ourselves. But what keeps you going? What advice do you have for others so that they can continue when it's tough? They still can sort of double down, pick up, and keep going.
I got to tell you, it's funny. I reflect on my career, and I'm probably best known for 3 big failures that were well funded. Google Health was a failure, but a very valiant attempt to do something very cool that's led to 10 different iterations, right? While I think Box really doesn't go into that camp because it was less aspirational, and that it was hey, let's take a product that's a tool that helps you with compliant, file sharing, and let's figure out how to make it HIPAA compliant and use it with CROs and pharma and have hospitals use it. That's great. It was adapting a tool that was already in the marketplace. So I won't even put Box in there. But then I go to Amazon. Spent a lot of time trying to figure out, is Amazon Care going to take flight? Are we going to do something with Alexa and make her HIPAA compliant with smart speakers and put them in? Nope, that didn't work either, right? We want to go out eventually and just buy One Medical, which was sort of what we could have done in the beginning. And so what I will say to anyone who is trying to innovate, and I have plenty of other failures to talk about, plenty. But what I would say is, you take so much out of those failures. And I have lots of friends that have been first-time CEOs. I have lots of friends that are in M&A right now, couldn't make it, couldn't fundraise, but maybe got to a B and had to. And it's that's just chapter 1, my friends.
Yep.
Chapter 1, and you will be better for it. Keep going. So what gets me up is trying to get past the failures, right?
So we're on chapter 4 with Missy Krasner. Missy, this is awesome. It's great to be back here at Health with you. Thank you for the Inspiring Women conversation. Thank you for always being inspiring. I've been with Missy Krasner, and Missy, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I can't wait to see what next year brings us when we're back here again.
Awesome.